Before we start this show, I got a question. How do we feel about JGR in general, or do we just not like Denny?
Oh, fuck him.
Fuck all of them. Okay.
Fuck that whole team, dude.
Okay. Cool. Well, good to know. Got my intro ready then. Good.
Well, yeah, certainly. I mean, it was our fault. We made a mistake. Spotter said it was clear. I wasn't clear, and, I didn't want to tear my car up, tear his car up either. I respect everybody, and I demand respect. And, I apologized to the guy when he came over the car, explained to him what happened, and then he took it to another level when he started calling me an idiot and whatever else. And I don't appreciate that. I'm not going to take it. I told him how I feel. I called him out. He didn't show, and so, I'm good with it if he's good with it, but I'm not going to be disrespected by no means.
Yeah, I guess I had a dinner date at Applebee's last night that I didn't find out about until it was too late. It's a shame. Love their riblets and boneless wings, but...
All right, ladies and gents, welcome back to Meet Me at Applebee's, your JGR hating podcast. This is Brian K. once again with Rob and Ashley. Folks, how you doing this week?
Pretty good, man. Them Yoders ought to get back to cheating, if you ask me. What do you think, True Love?
Yep.
You put that one on a t-shirt. That was probably my favorite one so far, to be honest with you.
So we had some racing this weekend. There was all sorts of racing. Let's see, we had Texas, Richmond, wherever the fuck F1 was. All sorts of races. Yeah. So let's talk about them.
Yeah, this is the first open for business weekend across the short track world, across the NASCAR world. Everything was running. It was great. I don't think there was a time where you could have flipped on your TV or Flow or whatever and missed out on something.
Well, not everywhere was running because you were supposed to go to a race this weekend and it got canceled. I know my buddy,
true.
Bobby, his race got canceled too. So,
well, the modified race on Friday down in Richmond also got postponed. But I guess I'm just saying that Friday to Sunday there was always something you could tap into on the internet, or if it didn't get rained out, it was happening, which is pretty much how races go, I guess. But
yeah,
that's the smartest thing I've ever said on this show. Sorry, True Love.
Did they ever get the modified race in? I didn't.
They ran it after the Xfinity race. Yeah.
Any coverage about it?
And congratulations to Austin Beers for getting his first modified tour win. He's a new shoe. He's been around New England for a little bit, but it's just sort of his first foray into the big boy world of the modifieds, and he won very convincingly. So congrats to him. Nice. Also, it was pretty fun to see Justin Bonsignor and I forget who else it was get into it on the front stretch a little bit. Nobody was happy after that race except for Austin Beers. So, but congrats to him. That team in particular, they don't really win a whole lot either. So it was nice to see that whole combination of folks on the top step down at Richmond. So hopefully you see them at the Icebreaker this weekend.
Yes, we'll get into that later. So I guess we'll talk about Richmond because, I mean, is there much to say about F1? I heard that sucked. Nobody wants to talk about F1. We're an anti-F1 podcast.
Apparently, they got a NASCAR style finish, from what I hear. I haven't watched that race, so I can't comment on it. But
F1 had a NASCAR?
I watched it, but the first 13 laps were fine, and then Verstappen took the lead, and I quit paying attention. So.
See, it's funny you mentioned that they had a NASCAR style finish because I was watching the last 20 laps or so of the Indy race at the gym, and that seemed like a NASCAR finish, at least getting the last lap wreck there.
That race was fucking incredible, by the way. Everything you could ever ask for in an IndyCar oval race happened at Texas, and I don't think it saves Texas Motor Speedway's reputation for NASCAR fans, which means it probably doesn't save whatever configuration it's in right now. For any racing, but god damn, it's kind of like that Fontana race in 2015. I don't think this race was on par with that one by any stretch, but it was still a barn burner. But I love how IndyCar and I guess most racing series have a way of when they're about to make a change in a track, and again, nothing's been announced for Texas, but you got to assume they're going to try something.
Yeah.
But as soon as the axe gets close to the chicken's neck, if you will, they pull out a hell of a race. And that IndyCar race was certainly one of them. And congrats to Joseph Newgarden for winning that one. That was Pato Award's race, in my opinion. But, Joseph got lucky with the loop data. And I got to be honest, I love races that don't end under green, white checker, even if they're under yellow. I hate green, white checkers. I hate overtime. So it was cool to see one still be exciting and end. Even though it ended under yellow, it was still something to be excited about.
I mean, I'm not full on Indy pilled yet, but I'm starting to get converted. Every time I watch a little of it, it's like, okay, this isn't too bad. This is definitely way better than F1. I'll fucking say that. You're never gonna get me sold on F1, but Indy, I think you can make a fan out of me.
Oh yeah, it'll be easy, especially come month of May when I talk about it for the entire episode. I'm gonna break you down, buddy. Death by 1,000 cuts.
Well, now that we got the other races out of the way, so let's talk NASCAR. Obviously, I guess let's talk about the Texas truck race first, since to piggyback off the Indy race. I didn't watch all that race, but that was quite the shit show of a finish. I know you guys aren't fans of Carson Hocevar, and him winning this way was not the greatest win, but I think it was just disappointing to see the move Sanchez made and fucked it all up for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, people want to pin that on Carson Hocevar, and he certainly didn't lift. But I mean,
it ain't his fault.
Nick Sanchez took himself out of that win. That was his own fault.
Yeah. It was that wreck was about as much. Well, I shouldn't compare it to the Chastain thing, because he did touch Sanchez, but there was no saving Sanchez.
Yeah.
There was no saving Sanchez anyways. Like,
Sanchez had a nice save through the grass until he didn't.
Yeah,
I don't think he ever had control of that truck. Carson clearly did not help, and maybe he wouldn't have wrecked had Carson not been there, but he probably wouldn't have won. I don't think.
I don't think there would have been any discussion of that being a dirty move either if it wasn't Carson Hocevar, whose bumper he got sent off of. If it wasn't for all the other shit he's involved in and has a reputation. It's the Chastain syndrome thing, like people are automatically going to pin that on him. And, he could have lifted. He could have backed out of it. Would have sent Sanchez into the wall still. Maybe. I don't know. Who knows? But I don't think you can really blame Carson Hocevar with his first win within, a few thousand feet from him. And then this guy loses control in front of you and you're supposed to just back off. Like, I don't know. That's especially when wins are at such a paramount and you have to get them to move forward in the playoffs, especially in the trucks, because they only have like 3 cars in the playoffs or something like that. So you kind of have to. But yeah. I'll bite my tongue on this one. Congrats to Carson. He's a good driver for sure. He does a lot of things that I think are dumb, and I think we'll get into that a little bit later. But, he's been due for a win for a while, and he finally got one. So we'll leave it at that.
And then on to the Xfinity race. That was another race that I don't think was this weekend might have been the first weekend in a while where I think the Cup race was actually clearly better than the Xfinity race.
I don't remember the Xfinity race. I watched the Xfinity race. It's not memorable to me.
You didn't miss much, really. It wasn't much going on. I mean,
that's fine. That's fine.
It was a race.
They can't all be lottery winners. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
The Cup race was definitely was pretty good. But what was up?
We're not gonna address the wreck that happened in the truck race.
Oh, the one I sent you all a wall of text about.
Oh, that one. Yeah, I guess we should. What a goddamn
wow. Yeah.
Rob, go off, because I know you had a lot to say about it.
Well, I have on the notes here, and this is something I wrote down after the wreck happened, before I started texting you guys, and it was that Matt Mills and Armani Williams should look into going to community college instead of being race car drivers. But I got to be honest, the more I thought about it and the more I watched the replay of that and the angrier I got, it's like a whole team-wide systems failure thing. Like maybe their spotters didn't tell them. I don't know. But to have the caution come out, and this happens a lot in the truck series now, but to have the caution come out and then 10 seconds later have a car fly in there at full song and just clean out somebody in the driver's door. Like, I'm sorry, you do not deserve a seat if that's the way you're going to. And if you have mechanical failure, that's one thing. But then I want to turn my attention to the team. Why are your brakes failing that fucking badly on I guess not a super speedway, but it's for the trucks, I suppose. That's one of the bigger tracks they go to.
Yeah.
I don't know. And for the spotter to not notice that, just like, who the fuck was paying attention in that moment? And there's at least 6 people that weren't. And poor Dean Thompson, whoever the hell that is,
It's not
no
like
offense, Dean, but
it's not like there wasn't plenty of room on the outside of that truck. And even if you had to, just go through the fucking grass. Like, that just, it was just embarrassing to see that.
For me, it's the time. The yellow comes out. Someone, whether it's the light on the fence whether it's, you know, the little kid in the front row waving the yellow flag himself that he brought with him, whether it's just your instinct, whether it's the light on your digital fucking dash telling you the caution's out, you should know. And if you don't know that the yellow is out at that point, then you probably shouldn't be driving in one of the top series of stock car racing in the United States. And again, I'm not a race car driver. I can hear you. All 10 people that listen to this out there like, well, you don't drive a race car. You're right. I'm in my fucking basement. That's correct. That is certified. I'll take a picture of it and show you. I am not a race car driver. And I'm currently a basement dweller at this moment when I'm recording this. But I'm sorry, man. Like, sometimes you just got to believe your eyes. And that sort of shit that we saw with that wreck is completely unacceptable at that level. Just my 2 cents. And if I don't care, like if it's your age, whatever it is, if you're too young to handle it, you shouldn't fucking be there. If you're too old and you don't know what you should be doing, you shouldn't be out there. Go drive fucking Miatas, you know, in a parking lot for autocross. I don't know. Find something else to do. Just my 2 cents.
I agree with all of it.
Angry Tuesday night over here.
So angry.
And speaking of angry, we got to get into everybody hating. No, you know what? Do we do Ross or we do Denny? Because we got to talk
get
about
Denny out of the way.
Yeah, let's get Denny out of the way.
Yeah, let's let the parade of hate continue here with Denny.
So,
Denny Hamlin just out of pocket cleaning out JJ Yeley.
Yep, and
for 30th place.
As the one person on this show that, or Rob, do you listen to Denny's podcast or no?
No.
Okay, as the one person on this show that actually listens to Denny's podcast every week, and I'm sure his penalty had nothing to do with this, but he flat out denied wrecking JJ on purpose. He was like, he said some bullshit about JJ getting up in his lane, and he's like, why would I do that? It was 30th place. Why would I wreck him? We're old buddies. Like, and he said something on the radio about JJ kind of understanding what happened after the fact, and it's just all bullshit from Denny. I started out 2022, or I shouldn't say started out the season because I was already starting to not like him, but I used to be a Denny fan the last couple of years. At least not my favorite, but I enjoyed him. With every single podcast he puts out, I like him less and less. Every single one. Everything he does every week, I like him less and less. I respect the investment he has in the sport. I respect the fact that he opens his mouth and speaks his mind because there are very few drivers at his level, aside from maybe Kevin Harvick, that do that. But he is just becoming so unlikable with everything he just says and does.
Speaking of his team, how about his fucking IT guy going over the wall during that pit stop?
So is that what actually happened? No.
True Love, you were joking about it. I just listened to DBC before this. Tuesday tradition for me. It actually was the pit road IT guy collecting tires in front of Michael fucking Jordan. So
wow.
Yeah, True Love was joking about it. Like, he looks like the IT guy. He had his little vest on, his
he
little
like a
helmet.
fucking nerd.
He did, and you were right.
Jesus,
Poor
screwed
fucking
Bubba's whole day. Man. In front of Michael Jordan too, like front row center.
Yeah, that was good.
Man,
that's something else I'll blame Denny for, because he shouldn't have his IT guys on pit road like that.
Yeah, catching tires. That's like some not Xfinity series. Well, I guess it is. I guess that's some
Mike Harmon shit.
Yes, definitely Mike.
That's pretty funny if Denny's taking out back markers like that and he's running his pit road just like those guys. I do appreciate that. Just whoever can catch tires can. So maybe that's why he's pissed off. But
I don't know if that's got something to do with the whole JGR deal and he has to use their pit guys or what. But just Slim Pickens over there. I don't know.
Speaking of JGR, we laid some hot hatred on them when we opened the show here, but boy, it does not seem like a happy place to be living right now.
Nope. Especially after Christopher Bell laid the blame on somebody else after fucking up William Byron's day. Let's get on this hot take here. As a Ross Chastain fan, do you know how vindicated I feel after all this?
Fuck you.
Listen, let me also say this real quick, because I'm also the one person on this show that kind of likes Carson Hocevar. Listen, the first exposure I had to NASCAR was Days of Thunder. No matter how much I try to forget what I learned from that movie, the whole rubbing his race and bumping shit, that's always going to be burned into my brain. So maybe subconsciously, that's why I like these guys. Because as a kid, I loved Dale and Ernie, who both had really bad reputations for wrecking people. Now, as an adult, apparently I like Ross Chastain, who also has a reputation for wrecking people, which he did not do this weekend, even though he was blamed it by Christopher Bell.
Yeah,
one time, the literal one time.
You mean that didn't happen in Atlanta when he didn't wreck Kevin Harvick either?
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
still
boy,
sticking with that one.
Yeah. Christopher Bell definitely had his pleated Hagars in a bunch for the wrong reasons this weekend. Speaking of Days of Thunder, I think somebody who should watch that movie would be Matt Mills and Armani Williams.
Hold on.
They should watch that scene with the smoke. And notice how no one got hit in that one.
That's true. We have to follow up though with this whole the Ross and Christopher Bell thing. What this resulted in was a flood, an absolute flood of amazing, wonderful Ross Chastain did it memes. Ross Chastain, apparently he caused the wreck at the 79 500. He caused the sinking of the Titanic. He was at January 6th. He did 9/11. Ross did all 9/11. It was all his fault.
The JFK assassination.
Yeah.
All these fun chase at Martinsville. Yeah.
We got the receipts, people. But yeah, I do love a good explosion of memes. So I do appreciate everyone hating on Ross, even though, again, this last time wasn't really his fault.
What do you mean wasn't really? It was not his fault. It wasn't really. It was not his fucking fault.
Well,
not even
being on
not even a hint.
Yeah, he showed up to the track that weekend, so he's one of at least 36 involved.
He's got one foot in the grave right there. So
yeah,
you fucking guys. All right, well there's my Ross Chastain vindication. So what's next on the old docket here?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know where to go after that.
Yeah, I got a bad taste in my mouth.
Wash this taste out of my mouth. Yeah.
Ugh.
Let's see. I guess we could go on to the. Do we go to the Dart for the week next? I mean, I don't know what else.
Well, we were talking about Carson Hocevar, and this is directly tied in. So yeah, let's just jump on in.
Keep the angry train rolling.
Yeah, it is the Play Haters Ball here tonight on or this afternoon or whenever you're listening to this very positive episode of Meet Me at Applebee's. Which again, by the way, I will throw a little positive thing in here before we moved on. I thought that race was pretty good.
It was.
Oh yeah,
it was very enjoyable, and I think that was the right direction for NASCAR to be going in. The shorter spoiler and whatever they did with Goodyear did with the tires, it seemed to work. So hopefully that saves other places like New Hampshire and New Hampshire's been okay, I guess, but Martinsville in particular. I think that this sort of bodes well for a lot of places.
It was definitely the best Richmond race in a few years. So I was entertained watching it for sure.
Yeah, so congrats to them, especially after a whole week of just getting drugged for this whole Hendrick penalty reversal, which wasn't NASCAR's fault by any means, though they did create the system that put him in that. We don't have to talk about that shit. But yeah, it's nice to see at least someone in the NASCAR office get an edible arrangement sent to him for making a good decision, because the race on Sunday was actually pretty damn good. So But anyway, Dart for the week here. Like I said, Carson Hocevar, he is a topic of conversation on this show so far. I don't know if we really talk about him very much on here. I run my mouth all the time to you guys off mic. Yeah. I try and keep my real negative. This is funny to say after this fucking opening 10 minutes of this show, but I try and keep most of my shit talk off the airwaves here, so to speak. I don't like to run my mouth too much, but our Dart for the week this week is a guy who really, really loves Carson Hocevar and just fucking hates Rich Bickle. I don't even know what I should say his name. Oh, fuck it. His name's Alex Wood. He's a journalist, I guess. I don't know who he's written for, but he seems to be pretty well connected. He had a podcast for a little bit. I don't even know what it was called, but when I did a little bit of research on this just to make sure I wasn't putting my foot in my mouth here, I noticed that he had some pretty big guests on his show, and maybe he knows what he's talking about. I don't know, but he again really loves Carson Hocevar.
His best friend.
They're either actually best friends or Carson maybe want to fucking call the police. One of the two here. I'm not really sure which one it is. But in the wake of Carson winning this race and the internet being a little bit negative about that win, because again, even if it wasn't completely unjustified, it was a car flying off the front of Carson Hocevar's car, resulting in his win. But anyway, this guy Alex, whether he's his best friend or not, really just decides to take all of his anger out on Rich Bickle for whatever reason. And it took me a little while. Oh, by the way, this Darf of the Week comes to us from, again, from professional Darf hunter Kyle Armstrong of the Forward Bite podcast. It's the second time this guy has found us some gold. So, again, give his show a listen if you want to learn about dirt late models. It's fucking awesome on the Speed Sport Network. So I'll just go ahead, unsolicited, as far as I know, he posted a picture of a signed Rich Bickle trading card. Says, free toilet paper. Who wants it? It shocks me how much this clown isn't in a jail cell. He can't go around threatening people just because he doesn't like them. He's an immature crybaby who's upset because Michigan drivers are worlds better than Wisconsin drivers. Rich Bickle is an even worse crybaby than Kyle Busch. Well, I don't know about that. The man, in quotes, the man is a dirty driver. Dirty. With no talent and did absolutely nothing in NASCAR, and yet he thinks he was better than Richard Petty. I'm shocked how this clown never got knocked on his ass. I'm waiting for the day he fucks with the wrong person and gets what's coming to him, an assault charge. I swear if this fool ever attempts to take a swing at me, I will not hesitate to have him arrested. And it goes on in the comment section. And I know you got something you want to say, so Brian, please take the...
I got two things to say. One, when the hell did Rich Bickle ever say he was better than Richard Petty? And two, I don't think a fucking trading card is good toilet paper.
Yeah, who's wiping their ass with a trading card? That seems like the absolute worst thing you could possibly.
The highest level of desperation.
So the research that I did on this, and again, I didn't want to go too far because I have a wife and a mortgage and a job and a life to attend to. But apparently, 2021 Snowball Derby, I believe, or excuse me, it's Slinger. Rich Bickle and Carson Hocevar got into it. Carson, I don't remember this 100% what happened, but Carson kind of did his usual routine on Rich, and Rich kind of got mad on his joint Facebook account with his wife, which is kind of funny to see Darcy - Rich Bickle just cussing Carson Hocevar on the internet. But I won't read it. It is what it is. He basically says, next time you do it, I'm going to kick your ass. And the only reason you're here is because of daddy's money, which I don't think is entirely true. I don't think Carson's loaded by any means. But anyway, this definite friction from 2 or 3 years ago at the Snowball Derby, and I think the Slinger Nationals, if I remember correctly. And then our buddy Alex here is just taken up the flag,
losing his mind.
Yeah, and then just trying to say that Rich Bickle is a has-been and no talent, and I'm sorry, you don't win 5 Snowball Derbies as a has-been or as a never was or whatever the fuck you want to call it. That's just, and he calls himself a historian here, but I'm sorry, maybe his NASCAR record isn't that great, though he did win a few races in the Truck Series, so there's that. But I mean, Rich Bickle is a legend. That you could almost say that Dick Trickle is a wash-up or a has-been, even though just because his NASCAR record wasn't so hot, which obviously we all know that is fucking false. So anyway, I'm going to spare this guy a true judgment this week. I'm not going to give him a sentence or anything like that. Time served, buddy. But just go out and take a deep breath. Enjoy the fresh air. Spring is upon us. Relax.
Get some ice cream.
Log the fuck off for just a sec. Get some ice cream, please. And that's our Darf for the week, folks.
Yep. Since this was WrestleMania weekend, I watched a lot of wrestling, and our question of the week is going to be from my former wrestling podcast co-host. I'll just say that our buddy Alex's behavior here is very reminiscent of a lot of overzealous, I'm going to say that as nicely as possible, wrestling fans who take wrestling way too seriously, maybe to the point of, there's some mental illness involved. And that's kind of where I'm feeling like Alex is coming from with some of the stuff he's saying. When you do a 6-hour podcast about someone, that's...
Oh, yeah, he did do that. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's real crazy. I don't
really know that's what I'm saying. Just go outside. Take a breath.
I just want to add
one cigarette, bro.
One little tidbit. When this was presented to us, I did a little research on Rich Bickle here, and I was not aware that he was a co-owner of a strip club.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, but
that's a fact.
The strip club got shut down in 2021 because they had 4 shootings in the parking lot.
Holy shit. Okay.
Well, Alex,
Nailed
if you know something we don't, give us a call. By the way, if you guys like what you hear on this show, you got questions for us, like we're about to answer, hit us up on all of our channels. You can do it on Spotify, tweet us, DMs, all that. We'd love to talk to you. Even you, Alex, even though I kind of like burned you a little bit there. You know, if you know something about Rich Bickle we don't, shoot us a message. We'll talk about it. In the spirit of diplomacy.
Not for 6 hours, though.
Not for 6 hours, though, yeah.
No. So yes, going on to our question of the week. Like I said, this one comes from my former podcast co-host of Pod Van Dam. His name is Ed. Let me give a quick background on Ed. So Ed isn't as much of a racing fan as most of us are, but Ed was a big fan of NASCAR in the 2000s. So that's kind of where his wealth of knowledge is as far as racing is concerned. And he always asks me questions, and we talk about stuff. And his question that he brought up here, and I just had it pulled up, and of course I closed out of it as I was going to read it. Where the fuck?
I got it up right here. I'll read it if you want.
Go right ahead and read it. No, I got it. Never mind. So I have a question. I'm rewatching a bunch of old 2002 NASCAR races. My favorite rewatching these is Jeff Green. The 30 car never matters, and he's basically paid to drive around a very fast AOL billboard for a few hours every Sunday. Do you guys all have a favorite driver who never won and also just drove around a very fast billboard for a few hours every Sunday? Seems like a sweet job. No one has any expectations for you. Your owner knows you'll lose, so you can kind of just chill. It rules.
I agree. It does rule.
Two things real quick that I'll say before I guess we can all give our answers. One, Ed did not know that the AOL car was actually supposed to be Kevin Harvick's, and Harvick's entire career may have panned out a little differently had Dale not passed away.
That's a fact.
So when I told him that, his mind was just blown. Second off, what we're going to get into maybe our past favorites, but I can safely collectively say that our current favorite, all three of us, is BJ McLeod.
Yep.
He is our favorite. I don't think there's
100%.
We're all part of the McLeod crowd. I know our fantasy league is also part of the McLeod crowd. So yes, BJ is
very loud
our
for
favorite.
McLeod.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Now in saying guys from the past, I guess, this one was a little tough to answer because, Ed said guys that never won. And I'm going to give my answer as a guy that did win, but a guy that, there's about 20 years between his last start and his last win. And I'm going to go with Dave Marcus because, I loved Dave. I'm an independent driver fan. Dave always had wacky sponsors on his car in the 90s. He had Olive Garden, he had Prodigy, he had Realtree, like just really cool looking cars with weird sponsors.
That Realtree car is one of my favorite looking race cars of all time too, by the way.
Not to mention the fact that even in the 80s, he was sponsored by a woman named Helen Ray, who was just like a rich widow who wanted to get involved in NASCAR and just like put her name on a race car. So there's another weird sponsor for you. So I guess that's going to be my answer. I had a couple other potential ones, but that would be mine.
God. True Love, you go ahead here. I got to think about this for a second.
Well, I didn't realize that we were breaking the rules and picking drivers that had actually won a race, like Brian here had done.
I think if there's 20 years between your wins and your last start, I think that
as far as drivers that have never won, it was a very short list. But I'd probably have to go with Dave Blaney.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Also a great looking car from that era.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit. So I'll give you one of each here.
Okay.
I think we just mentioned Dick Trickle. I don't think you can mention a guy who never won without mentioning Dick Trickle. He did win in the Busch Series and obviously has 1,000 wins elsewhere, ASA.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Dick never won at the top level in NASCAR, but you always really wanted to see it. You always felt good watching him. And Dick Trickle is a hero of mine. So I gotta say Dick Trickle. In the modern era, I gotta say David Reagan, even though that also breaks the rules because he did win a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
But I became a fan of his just to piss off a buddy of mine. And started buying t-shirts, and before you know it, you're just a David Reagan fan. So I did order a David Reagan t-shirt once directly from davidreaganracing.com. I think it's the website. And it was supposed to be autographed, and it wasn't. It was like a sweatsuit gray T-shirt, and I got it specifically so you could see the autograph on it, and it wasn't signed when it got here. It was only $7, so I don't really hold it against them. But David, if you hear this, you owe me a fucking T-shirt, buddy. Yeah, those are my two guys, and there are so many, to be honest. Especially from that era. Like the early mid 2000s when there was like 60 cars showing up. Like.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised that you didn't go with your favorite Uncle Kenny, Rob. Kenny never won a cup race.
That's a good choice too. That is a good choice too. I forget that he didn't. You're right. So yeah, I guess we got to give a shout out to Uncle Kenny there
for never winning.
Who posted a really good one on Twitter today, just asking, "What is woke?"
Oh, Jesus Christ! Oh,
it's the responses are surprisingly more measured than you'd expect. But yeah, this man is just out for violence on Twitter, and I'm here for it. But yeah, I'll back that up. Yeah, Kenny Wallace is a good choice for that too. Also drove some nice looking cars.
I saw that tweet, and then I saw that there was more comments and there were likes, and I was like, nope.
Yeah.
Not even gonna open that one.
Oh man, but yeah, great question, Ed. That's the kind of stuff we're looking for right there. But again, like we said last week, if you want to ask us a question, you can get weird with it. We're down to ask the questions that nobody wants to ask. Does Ty Gibbs have a tail? Perhaps. Does he? I think he might. Like you said last week, is Tyler Reddick Kurt Busch's son? Who knows? But we'd like to find out.
No one's proven otherwise that Ty doesn't have a tail. So.
He's saving himself for marriage, the Lord. So
that's between him, Jesus, and his pediatrician right now. So let's make that pop off. Hashtag Ty Gibbs has a tail. You heard it here first, folks, on the Meet Me at Applebee's podcast.
I guess that leads us to
kind of hard to move on from that one, isn't it?
I guess that leads us to our final segment of the week, and I'm excited to talk about this.
Me too.
Rob, I know you were rained out last weekend, but you'll be at Thompson Speedway this weekend, and Thompson Speedway is the location of our video of the week. And I'm going to let you roll off this first because it was your choice.
Yeah, so I had this picked out. Actually, I don't even know how this came across my feed. This is from that New England Racing History or New England Racing Archives YouTube page, which again, if you want something to watch, you want to learn something, want to see something you haven't seen, please subscribe. It's such a great resource for New England racing and just short track racing in general. There's so much wild shit on here. And this is one of those videos. This particular video is from 1989 when the Super Dirt Car Series came down. They had a pavement series they run a little bit. It's also kind of appropriate since NASCAR this weekend is going to Bristol to race on dirt.
That's true.
On the flip side, a bunch of big block modifieds came down from up north and raced on the pavement down here at Thompson Speedway. And it's a pretty fascinating little race. It's definitely a VHS presentation, something they would probably sell at the concession stand or, via mail order, I guess.
But it does have star of ABC and ESPN Larry Newber as one of the commentators.
Yeah, Larry Newber is one of the commentators. I don't know who the other guy is, but they do a decent job of handling this.
And they're flesh-colored polos.
Yeah, are they wearing shirts or do their bodies have collars? Who knows?
Well, blame Miller for that because I think that was their fault.
Yeah.
But let me just say this real quick. When I saw you sent a Thompson link, I was like, okay, that makes sense. Wasn't until a week later when I actually sat and had a chance to watch it. I was like, oh shit, this is dirt modifieds on asphalt. This is right up my fucking alley. So
exactly. And I love a good fish out of water situation, a good run what you brung show. One of my favorite races I ever saw in person was up at WIR or Kakana. There was a run what you brung race on that oval. It was like a Thursday night show. My band just happened to be on tour up there for some festival and we stopped in and caught a race on a Thursday night. And I forget the name of the race. If I figure out what it was, I'll put it up in the comments here or in the show notes. But there was a dirt late model out there. There was a couple like ARCA cars. There was a pavement modified. There was a couple street stocks. It was fucking nuts. And that's not what this is by any means, but anytime you can see something that's not supposed to happen, it's a great pleasure of mine. And this is certainly one of those occasions. Again, big block modifieds that are usually on dirt. In fact, most of these guys raced on dirt the night before. I forget where they came from. I think they were somewhere in upstate New York. Canandaigua, that's right. I think this is the second race they ran on asphalt this year. Again, the Super Dirt Series, and I apologize, that's not what it was called back in those days, but the Super Dirt Car Series at the time did a pavement series in the middle of their season. They were at San Air a few weeks prior, and Ken Schrader, of course, won that race. Ken Schrader's in this one as well, and he puts on a show in his heat. Seriously, if it's not a fucking short track video that you just dug up out of the corner of the internet, if Ken Schrader's not racing in it, I swear to God, that guy was everywhere.
Other than Ken Schrader, you got Jeff Bodine, who was a Thompson track champion way back in the day, and you've got all the stars of the modified series at the time. Lots of Bob McCready footage. I mean, this race
put Bob in full effect. Yeah,
Bob he started off the video with kind of talking about the differences between the setups of the cars, and he was talking about how he had just switched over to independent rear suspension, which I guess I didn't realize at the time that a lot of those dirt cars were running straight axles, and there was kind of a debate as to whether or not that was the way to go. And if you watch the race, it was very clear that it was the way to go, because Bob was the only straight up modified racer that wasn't lapped at the very end. It came down to him and Jeff at the very end, which we'll get to when we get to the end of the race. Starting before the race, though, I mean, there's Danny Johnson gets mentioned a handful of times, and he starts off this show with an interview, and he looks so annoyed. He just wants to get his car switched over, and this interviewer is asking him these boring questions, and Danny's just like, yeah, it's not that hard, but I need time, and he's just like wants to get this over with.
He looked very sweaty and disheveled, and
well, people don't realize how human New England can get, and I can tell you, those cotton T-shirts they had back in those days, them things are fucking 10 pounds a pop, especially when you sweat through them like that.
Well, not even
no sleep. I'd be mad too if I was getting talked at.
A lot of shirts back then were 50-50 blend, and those 50-50 blend ones don't. The half polyester ones, they don't quite breathe as well as cotton. So yeah, it's a pain in the ass.
Now, you can put your trash in those things. Won't leak.
We have some daytime heat action where you kind of see the cars. Some of them drift through the turns a little bit like they're still on dirt, which I think is interesting to see. And some of the guys, I mean, I know at one point Billy Decker and Ken Schrader get down all the way on the apron, basically in the dirt trying to pass people.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
The funny thing about it was, Ken Schrader does have a lot of experience on dirt, but he was probably the guy who was hanging. This is well into his NASCAR career, and he is probably hanging it out more like a regular dirt car than anybody else, driving way off that right rear and diving in the corners and then diving down to the apron and catching the dirt with his front left. One thing I love about this is that even though it's dirt modifieds and they are kind of running dirt lines, this is a very nice primer on how Thompson races. It doesn't look a ton different from what you'd see from a regular modified race or the way these guys get in the corners, because the video doesn't really do it justice, but the banking at Thompson is very steep. It's well above 20 degrees, and the straightaways are very flat. So there's only certain ways you can't really get too high, without having to diamond the corner very seriously. And I don't know, if you were to go to Thompson with me this weekend for the icebreaker, you would probably see the exact same lines being run as you would here. Even with these dirt cars, it's a nice little primer on Thompson. The track really hasn't changed much at all, to be honest with you. Might be some less grass, in between the main wall and the spectator wall. But the track it looks just like it does today.
Before the race starts, this is a Skoal-sponsored series, and they do a starting lineup draw using cans of Skoal with the numbers written on the back of them, which I thought that was very cute bit of product placement.
Was cute.
Very, very 1980s with that. Yeah. Literally from the beginning of the race, it's just a battle between Jeff Bodine and Bob McCready. Bob starts out with the lead. Eventually Jeff takes over. But it's, other than Reggie Ruggiero getting up there for a little bit and battling, really this entire race is just those two. They're off.
Yeah, Reggie plays the long game and kind of waits for the traffic to wear themselves out, and he's very experienced here. Of course, Reggie Ruggiero is a asphalt modified legend. Also, I don't know, this is sort of a drinking game you can play. Like every single time they mispronounce his name as Ruggiero, you take a shot, you'll be in the hospital by the time this hour-long video is finished.
Let's see, what else do I have here note wise? One little thing I thought was funny. They boast about what they call the race safe system, which is basically I don't know if it's a radio or computer automated system to where when the caution's out, there's a little yellow light on the dashboard of each car that
I know a
just
couple
lights
guys that
up.
could look into that.
Yeah, you definitely could. So I guess that was high tech for 1989. At one point, Danny Johnson, his crew chief, gets interviewed because Danny was having problems with the drive line, I guess. And this crew chief, like, look, A, he looks like he's 16 years old, and B,
Yeah,
he's even more annoyed than Danny was during his interview.
When
these
he
people-
turned around to face the camera, I was shook. I was like, "Whose child is?"
As far as the actual broadcast, or I shouldn't say broadcast, or whatever you want to call this production itself, I'll admit that it's a little bit tough to follow at times because there's very clearly a bunch of points where the announcers are talking about what's going on in different parts of the track, and you're just seeing guys. And even if you're a fan of some of these drivers, the cars aren't necessarily incredibly recognizable. Like Kenny Tremont, my all-time favorite that I talked about. I spent time at his house as a child. He was in the race, and it took me a while to finally spot his car. Just because, like, A, the quality of the video isn't the greatest, admittedly, but I mean, we're talking over 30 years old of dirt modified footage. So
yeah, it's also like it's the track PA. It goes from the professional audio to the recording of the track PA, and it doesn't line up particularly well. They definitely cut out some laps and overlaid the wrong audio, and it eventually comes back around like a windshield wiper does. It gets back in the tempo of the song you're listening to.
Yep,
it works out that way, but it is admittedly pretty hard to watch. So you just kind of have to. It's like if you're at the actual track and you go up to go have a beer and you come back and sit down and they've caught lap traffic. You have no idea what's going on. You just kind of sit there and soak it in. That's this video.
But I mean, that's kind of how, I mean, even if you go back to NASCAR back then, I mean, it's not like you really got much more than a top 10 ticker half the time as far as who was where. I mean, maybe the announcers would be more tuned in with what's going on the track, but I mean, it wasn't until the last like 20 years that racing production for all forms of motorsports really, really got good. So, I mean, again, for a 30-plus-year-old short track video, it's good enough.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it was the mid 90s when we first started seeing that on the ABC broadcasts, if I remember correctly, because I remember growing up and there was never a ticker for the most part.
Not like a full
commercial,
not like a full on ticker, but I mean, like ESPN, I think would have at least like the top 10, at the very least.
For a long time, all they did was that little like transparent number telling you what lap it was on in the corner.
Yeah, that's very true.
It. So, but yeah, if you're used to it, again, even with that said, this video is a little hard to follow in the middle of it, but still fantastic archival footage.
Yep.
I recommend watching the whole thing for that reason.
Yep. With about 20 laps to go, we get a short interview with Bob McCready's crew chief, who really has not much confidence at all in his driver. He's just like, I don't know if we can do it. We'll see how these laps, pan out. And it turns out that he almost did it. Like Bob was fading in and out, and the last lap in turn one, he dove in deep and he tried his hardest, but he made a really valiant effort for a guy that races dirt about 98% of the time he's on the track. Compared to a Winston Cup winner who was track champion at this place, less than a decade prior. So he did really good.
It definitely a little glimpse at, if you don't know who Barefoot Bob is, just how incredibly talented of a driver he is.
Oh, for sure. And I'll say this now. We record on Tuesdays, and you'll be hearing this on Wednesday, hopefully. There will be a Bob McCready t-shirt for sale on the Speedway Screen site today. So if you
what size is it, buddy?
I'm not. It's either a large or extra large. I'm not sure off the top of my head. One of those two.
I'm gonna be watching the Speedway Screens Instagram. Which, by the way, if you're listening to this, you should watch that too, because Brian posts all kinds of good shit all the time. So
yeah.
Turn on your notifications, Rob.
Yep, there you go. I'll text you
my little race safe yellow light's gonna pop off when that thing.
So yeah, like I said, the race was won by Jeff Bodine, and I obviously wanted Bob to win, but I can't say I'm surprised. I was a little more surprised that Schrader and Brett Hearn weren't up there, but again, like Bob and Jeff were just gone, and they were lapping the entire field. So
Yeah. Judging by the way they were lapping in the heat, I feel like they probably cooked their tires pretty quickly.
yeah.
Thompson will eat rubber for sure. Did you notice that in Jeff Bodine's Victory Lane interview, he's talking about Hoosier in a very complimentary way and how impressed he was with the tires and that sort of thing? And this is only about 3 years before he, or maybe a little bit.
No,
93, right?
The tire wars were already happening in '89. They were
That's
it
right.
had already
Yeah.
begun. There's plenty of really interesting documentaries about that on YouTube if you haven't watched any of those. But the tire wars had already begun then. So I mean, that's
I guess I'm thinking in '94 when Bodine opened up his own team and really went for it and was sort of the champion of Hoosier tires. It's kind of interesting to hear him this early. Was he on Hoosiers at this point when he was driving for Hendrick? I think they always stuck with Goodyears, correct?
So, as someone who's watched those documentaries many times, it wasn't so much teams sticking with one brand. It was which brand brought tires to the track that week that actually were usable. If you go back and like you watch those documentaries, there were certain weeks was like Goodyear brought a tire that they can't run. Hoosier has to be run by everybody. There wasn't really brand allegiance back then. It was just whichever tires held up the best is what you ran. So yeah, that's our video of the week, and I haven't picked out a video of the week next week yet, but stay tuned. It'll be something good, I'm sure. And that is going to lead us to this coming weekend in Bristol. Last year, Ashley and I had a really great weekend going to both Monster Trucks and the Bristol Dirt Race, and unfortunately, neither one of us will be in attendance this year, but I'll definitely be watching on Sunday.
Yeah, 7 p.m. start time on a Sunday night. I don't know how I feel about that, but I'll be watching. That's for sure.
Well, it allows everybody to get their churching out of the way.
Yeah, we get
Let
to hunt Easter eggs.
Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got to go have a family cookout and watch children hunt for eggs. So
I won't be doing any of that. I'll just be drinking beers and watching racing by myself with my animals.
I'm going to be hungover as hell after a weekend at Thompson doing the same thing in my little Easter dress, watching the children prance about.
I got to see if any of my local tracks are open yet. Last I looked, nobody seemed to open until the end of April. But maybe if there's something interesting going on this weekend, I'll try to check something out.
That's pretty common up here in New England. Thompson's always the first track to officially open with the Icebreaker weekend. It's usually the first week of April. But, of course, as we said earlier, got rained out. By the way, if anyone listening to this is going to the Icebreaker this weekend, I'll be there both Friday and Saturday nights for the whole shebang. It's going to be pretty good. I'm wondering how much the car count would have been affected if they didn't cancel last weekend because a bunch of guys were trapped down in Richmond for their NASCAR commitments. So we'll see what the car count is like this weekend. I bet it's going to be pretty good. Usually these 10,000 to win shows really draw a lot of cars. But yeah, if you happen to be coming, track me down. I'm pretty easy to find in a crowd. I have shitty, greasy hair and a big beard and probably some dumb T-shirt I bought from Brian. I'll look cool. I'll tell you that much. But yeah, come say what's up, and we'll have a couple of Budweisers from the old beer stand at Thompson.
You bringing the old tub?
I am bringing the old tub. And by old tub, I mean me. But yeah, the Icebreaker is always fun. And again, if you watch this video of the week of ours, you can see how kind of unique and racy Thompson is. If you show up,
how long of a drive is that from you, Rob?
25 minutes.
Oh shit.
Oh yeah, that's like me from the Valley when I lived in New York. It's
a damn shame because they don't run nearly as much as they used to. In fact, this is another track that's sort of been under the the shadow of a threat of closure for some time now. The folks at the American Canadian Tour stepped in to run the oval. And they do a few shows over the course of the summer. Most of them are midweek, which is nice for me. But again, that doesn't really draw out a lot of cars. And then, of course, they have the Icebreaker and the World Series as their big events. So kudos to the American Canadian Tour, even though you guys didn't approve my little media credential request. It's okay. I don't take it personally because no one knows what our podcast is, and it's called Meet Me at Applebee's. So I get it. But, still, American Canadian Tour rips. Those guys have done a great job at that racetrack, and I'm excited to go see a weekend of racing run by them, because the shows always run really tight too. So you're not sitting around waiting for a fucking street stock feature to get cleaned up for 3 hours. But yeah, come out and say hi, please. Thompson's a great place. And again, that shadow is not lifted over the track necessarily. So come out while you can.
Cool. Well, that's going to, I think, wrap it up for another week at Applebee's.
Yeah.
As always, you can follow us on Instagram at Meet Me at Applebee's, on Twitter, which again is not really active, Meet Me at W's. I am at Speedway Screens on all forms of social media, and speedwaytsj.etsy.com.
Yeah, watch out for that Barefoot Bob shirt. Rob Boats _unofficial on Instagram. My band's called These Wild Plains. That's it. Yeah. True Love.
Yeah. Snake Mountain _True Love and Snake Mountain Goods on Etsy. So.
Woo! Before we shove off, who do you guys got for this week? And any hot takes? Any more anger you want to get out before we hang up the phone here?
Really just curious to see Jonathan Davenport in a cup card.
Oh yeah, he's running a truck too. He's running that number
truck.
7 truck too. Yeah. I got more faith in the truck than
the
cup car. But yeah, I think he's going to be. I don't know if he'll win, but I think everyone will be very impressed with how he holds up. And I'm also very, very excited to watch Superman get out there.
Oh yeah,
give it a shot.
I told my buddy last year not to bet on Kyle Busch, and then we saw him win. So I don't even know what to say. I would like to see Chase Briscoe win. That would be cool. But I guess we'll see if he's got another good run in him this year.
I feel as though Tyler Reddick is my choice for winner. He got robbed last year, and I think I think that he's been good at every race so far. And if there's going to be another guy to win 2 in rapid succession, I think it's going to be him.
It could happen. He's definitely one I'm going to put a couple bucks on for sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully the weather plays nice, because it's supposed to rain Thursday through Sunday, so could be real sloppy.
Well, we'll all be at Thompson, freezing our asses off. So
cool. All right, folks. Well, thank you once again for joining us at Applebee's, and we will see y'all next week.